Hey there, and welcome back to another Demon Slayer Season 3 review. And today we're going to be talking about the latest episode to drop, Episode 7, Awful Villain, which picks up from where we left off last week, where Tanjiro, Genya, and Nezuko teamed up to fight the team of demons, only to discover that the original fearful demon, the main body, had managed to shrink himself down and hide. And so they chase him down, attempt to kill him, with Tanjiro about to deliver the killing blow, and that's where we return to things. Tanjiro trying to finish off this dude once and for all, whilst Genya tries to hold off some of the other demons from intervening. Okay, so I gotta say, this whole section, very epic. But I also found it very difficult to take seriously at the same time. The little dude's legs have to move so quickly for him to try and escape, it's quite silly. But yeah, Tanjiro tries his best to kill the little freak, only for him to realise that, there's a demon right behind him. A new demon that he hasn't encountered before, and it's literally right there about to kill him. And on top of that, he's only about halfway through cutting through the little tiny neck. And it's at this point that Tanjiro's exploding blood sword conveniently runs out of Nezuko's blood to fuel it, which makes it useless in cutting off the little dude's head. And this in turn leaves Tanjiro extremely vulnerable against the final demon, especially since Genya can't get a shot off from his gun as Tanjiro's standing between them. And so here's where some plot armor starts to come into things. Because realistically, the demon should have just killed Tanjiro right here. He would not have had time to properly defend himself, and even if he hadn't died, he would have been sliced up pretty bad at the minimum. But instead, the demon decides to use his little drum to summon up stone dragons instead, which don't get me wrong, it's really cool. And that whole section where Tanjiro flies along, battling the different heads, sliding down them, the music, the camera angles, it's very awesome. It feels like an actual boss battle from like Kingdom Hearts or something like that. It was really well done, and it had this really fun, nostalgic quality to it. So good. This arc's just banger after banger. Every episode better than the last. And then Nezuko swoops in and saves him from becoming dragon food, although it leaves her down and out for the time being. And I guess she'll probably come back into the fight at some point, but not having her up and about, it really skews the power balance against Tanjiro and Genya. It ups the stakes, and thus I think it makes it more exciting for when Mitsuri inevitably shows up to help fight this thing like in the intro cinematic. Although, Nezuko gets up pretty quick, so maybe not. The final demon then reveals himself, and through Genya, we learn that originally he was just the anger demon, but then he saw that they were about to lose the battle against Tanjiro, and that the little demon was about to die, and so he absorbed the joy and pleasure demons before heading over to the sadness demon and taking him too. Against their will, I might add. And all the while, I guess Genya just stood there and did nothing. Like, come on, mate. Genya was literally right next to the sad demon, and I get that the demon moved fast to absorb him, but do something. You have your little sword, use it. Anyway, the hatred demon protects the little guy with a prison of stone, and then he glares intensely. And this glare seems powerful enough that it starts to sap their strength and makes their body shut down. And so I'm guessing that this is some sort of special power this guy has? The power of a hateful glare? Or is this one of those anime moments where you have to just brush that aside and say, ooh, he's staring so angrily that Tanjiro's heart is hurting, ooh. Of course, this demon then makes the fatal mistake of talking shit to Tanjiro, calling him a villain, which just revs him up and makes him give off one of those classic inspirational speeches that he loves to give. Telling the demon that, well, it's clearly the demon who is the villain, not him, don't be a fool, and that he's going to kill him. And then Nezuko gets back up and the music swells and you get ready for the next epic phase of the battle, and then they all just stand there staring at each other and nothing happens at all before we cut away to the different storylines and we don't return to this one in this episode, which, well, yeah, it's a bit of a shame. I did want to see where this fight was going, but for pacing's sake, I am glad that they finally dealt with some of Tokito's story as well. Feels like he's been drowning for quite a while now. Time to move on. Anyway, the pot demon laughs at Tokito a little bit and decides that since he's already won, and that Tokito's not going anywhere, he'd better check out what the swordsmiths are doing in the shack. And so, he very, very slowly makes his way over to check, whilst Tokito tries and fails to use the last of his breath to free himself from the water pot, before accepting his inevitable death and hoping that the Master of the Order sends at least 2 more Hashira to help at the village, so that way they don't end up getting killed like he did. But as he gives up and he closes his eyes to sort of just drift off, a vision of Tanjiro appears, speaking to him. Kind of like when he had those memories of Tanjiro earlier in the season. So at first I figured that's what this is. But then doubt's thrown on that when Tokito starts thinking about how he doesn't remember Tanjiro ever saying things like this to him. And I thought that this was actually a good twist in the episode. That since Tanjiro and Tokito's father had the same eyes, his brain subconsciously associates the two together. Hence why I guess Tokito was willing to listen to him earlier on in the season when he talked about doing good things for the sake of doing good things. Because it's simply the right thing to do, not because it's the most beneficial to him. Which is likely something his father did as well. I really love this twist, it was great. And I'm really excited to see the rest of his backstory start to reveal itself over what remains of the season. He's such a good character, and so interesting. And then we come to yet another epic moment, where the demon Gyoko stumbles across Tanjiro's swordsmith, polishing the sword they got from the training doll. And instead of paying attention and listening to what the demon says or even looking at him at all, the dude just keeps polishing, and all the while ranting and raving about how the sword's so exceptional, so well made, and has no name engraved. No thing to say who made it beyond a single maker's mark, because it's the perfect sword, forged without vanity and simply to slay demons. And he just rants and rants, even as Gyoko gets angry and slashes up his skin and destroys his mask, all to try and get his attention, to make him afraid and all of that, break his concentration, ruin his artwork. And honestly, this dude's a beast. And all the while, Gyoko gets angrier and angrier, unable to break his concentration, and steadily feeling more and more inferior. And this was one of my favourite parts of the episode, I reckon. Like, most of the time, these battle of wills, they're between the great warriors and the great villains. But here, it's not just a minor hero standing up to the villain, it's a non-combatant minor character. But he shows a level of devotion and will that we're only used to seeing from main heroes. And that really sets him apart. It's such a huge turnaround from being a comic relief character, angry at Tanjiro for destroying his swords. But now he's just a massively impressive badass, and clearly he's going to give the sword to Tokito, who's going to use it to kill Gyoko. But I'm also excited to see if the sword has any special qualities. After all, this whole segment, whilst it builds up the blacksmith, it also builds up the sword as something special and important. More important than focusing on one of the most powerful demons in the world. Back to Tokito, he keeps getting a pep talk from his dad, but as Tanjiro, because like I said, the reveal doesn't happen till towards the end of the episode, and his memories of his dad keep trying to convince him not to give up and that somebody's going to try to save him. And I tell you what, this scene, so emotional. I really love the music. It really just enhances everything, that slow piano. And then Kentetsu arrives, and he tries to break the bubble with his little knife, oh bless him, until a fish monster arrives and attacks him, slashing him and stabbing him. And I tell you what, they better not kill off this sweet little kid. He's been such a wholesome little addition to the story, and if he dies, oh, I'll be so depressed. And it looks like Tokito feels the same way, as once again, like we saw when the needles were shot at him and he got scared, or when he saw the death throes of the mountain smiths and got angry, he gets emotional here, and he breaks free of that monotone personality to get legit frightened for Kentetsu. The kid staggers over, he blows some air bubbles into the water, which triggers the dad flashback, and then allows Tokito to use a more powerful move to free himself, and suddenly, he's back in the game. Although, it's gonna take some plot armor to save that kid, I'll tell you what. That stab was really deep into his stomach, and he's just been letting it bleed out to try and help his friend. And then, of course, the episode ends. Loved it, want more, give me more, 1,000 episodes more, please and thank you. But yeah, really great episode. I can't really think about which fight I want to see more of at this point. I want to see them both. And isn't that just the mark of a perfect show? When you can't choose which is the better storyline. And so yeah, I think I'll wrap things up here. And I would like to say that these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? You like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.